I don't usually have like long-term plans or even like medium-term plans. I just like to like every day I go and I execute. From that execution, I get new ideas, and then maybe those new ideas could or could not become plans in the medium term or not. But I feel it always like stems from doing, right?
Spread Great Ideas is meant to increase the signal in a world awash in noise. I'm your curator and host, Brian David Crane, and it is my quest to share the learnings of the world's most interesting people, the disruptors, the outliers, the libertines, and those who've been unconventionally successful so that we can become a little bit wiser together. Please welcome my friend Julio Froment Castellvi to the show. Julio is the brains and brawn behind Picking Nuggets, one of my favorite YouTube channels. It's just about to crack 150,000 subscribers. He's also the author of The Little Almanac, a weekly newsletter where he shares timeless ideas from what he calls influential doers with handmade infographics to about 16,000 subscribers. And of course, he writes on spreadgreatideas.org. So excited to have Julio here. We're going to be talking about his three defining values, ones that he and I both share: curiosity, truth, and freedom, why he does what he does, whether he considers himself a content creator, more of a thinker, a philosopher. We'll see. I don't know. Welcome, Julio. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Excited to be
Oh,
here.
okay. So for those who don't know, tell folks a little bit about what you're going into with Picking Nuggets in the Little Almanac. Like, why'd you start doing this, and why does it resonate, and why do people care about it?
Yeah, so I it's it all like started like without ever planning for it to ever happen, and it's I believe like my first plan, like my first step into this journey, it was from a YouTube channel called Yaps, Yapps. I think now it's banned on YouTube, I think. Or it just got like destroyed with like copyrights and stuff. I think they created like a new channel from that. But basically, what they were doing is like small clips from the Berkshire Hathaway annual meetings. From there's like video recordings from these annual meetings since I believe 1990 something. It was all like recorded by I believe it was CNBC.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. And so these annual meetings, they were like 5 hours long, 6 hours long, something like that. So I loved this channel that it would cut to some 10-minute segment. While I remember it was especially when I was like commuting to do my internship when I was 25, I think, something like that. 24, 25 years old. And I was always like listening, especially to this YouTube channel. And then it occurred to me that I could do something like similar to this Yaps channel, right? Even though they were not creating like notes like I have on my YouTube channel. Now I have like a lot of notes and visuals and a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on. He just like watch like the 5 hour interview and pick a 10-minute clip and literally just reposted it on his YouTube channel. But that was like I was like, I'm getting so much value of this from this. I was like, maybe I can do something similar with like other people that I love to learn from. And on in that time, I believe it was like Monish Pabrai, an investor who actually like a follower of Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, and the other guy was Naval Ravikant. So
Those
Naval
are the,
Ravikant, yeah, yeah,
yeah, those
these
are the
two
two guys
people
that you
mainly.
wanted to. Yeah, please go ahead. So
Yeah,
what about Naval though?
actually, I wrote an email to the Yaps YouTube channel and I asked him that. But first, I said, I love your YouTube channel. It's bringing so much value to me. And it was funny, because he was not like doing anything. He was just like he was clipping it and uploading with a really interesting title. But just that, it was like super valuable because the original video was so long. It was like 5 hours something. And he replied to me, and then I asked him if he has any issues with copyrights and these kind of things, and he told me that that's his main concern. That's his main concern. but he hasn't had any problem for like 2 years since he made the channel. So I was like, oh, okay. So maybe it's not so crazy, right?
Yeah, but
Mhm.
then how did it end in the sense of you think that CNBC got finally filed a takedown request and basically his entire channel had to be
That
nuked because
happened,
the
like, yeah, I mean, that happened. Luckily, maybe if that would have happened, that would have happened at the time that I was thinking about doing picking nuggets. Maybe I would have not never like do the first step. But because these copyright claims came just like a year after that, I already had like the picking nuggets going on, and actually I had a copyright claim experience. I've had one, like after 7 months of the channel going, I had one copyright claim. It was from a health podcast. Actually, it wasn't even from like Naval or Mauricio or anything. From this psychiatrist called Gabor Mate.
Mhm.
Yeah, he said something. Yeah, I found it super super cool, and this was already with like visuals and text. Although it was super crappy, it's not like how it is right now. I would like literally do the video in 2 days, 3 days, whereas now it takes me like 2 weeks at least to make one video.
Hmm.
And so they make me a claim, and there's this thing called in YouTube the 7 day grace period,
That they
where
need to what is it? Yeah, what is the 7 day
it
grace period?
means it
Yeah.
means that so it means that basically you receive this claim, but if you take it down in the next 7 days, you are clean.
Okay, and you don't get a
You're
strike
you're on the
against your
clear.
channel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't get like you don't get any copyright strike or claim or anything. Yeah. And so I just took it down, and that was it. Yeah. And then I remember I called a lawyer from Kentucky, I think, because I saw that he had like experience with YouTube channels and copyright claims and everything. And he just gave me a masterclass about the Copyright Act law from the US.
Hmm.
And so now I have it like all these like Copyright Act. I have it in my like checklist on the process of how I make my videos and everything. And since that, it's never been like an issue to have like the copyrights.
What does
And that
that?
was like 3 years ago, I think.
Congratulations. I'm curious. What does that look like? That checklist in the sense of like you're. He's talking about fair use in the U.S.
Yeah.
or he says you can't use more than 3 seconds. Like, what are some of the guidelines that you're adhering to?
I think it's very unique to the US because we don't have that in Spain. I mean, if I was taking content from from a Spanish podcast, it would be like I could be like take like the takedown would be super like way more harsh than if it was a podcast from the US, because the law here is super super like
Strict about it, let's say.
strict about what they call, right, the author rights. Even if
Hmm.
you just take one part and you like mix it and then you make it super informative and you add commentary and all this, it's like it's super bad here. But in the US it's great, and it's the best place. I think it's the best place to do it. Or maybe even like the UK. I think it's the common law, right, which is kind of a little bit universal, I think. the
It's a UK concept. Yeah.
it's yeah, there's something about that, yeah. And but I've only seen like the US Copyright Act, because honestly also all the cool podcasts and interviews come from the US, so that's great, right? Everything that is worthwhile for me comes from the US, and the best place to do it is from the US, so that was the best combination for me. And so I've been just very very lucky, honestly, in this path, these kind of things. And what the checklist looks like, I mean, I would say there are like probably like five main things. One thing is that it's not very like artistic. The content nature is not like, for instance, if I were to take a little bit of a Dua Lipa song,
Yeah.
it would be really bad, right? Because that thing that those 3 minutes that Dua Lipa creates, it's like magic, right? Or it's super artistic, it's super all of that, right? Whereas the other end of the spectrum would be a guy.
Charlie Munger talking for 3 minutes at the
Exactly.
Berkshire Hathaway
Yeah,
meetings. Yeah.
literally like that. Yeah. or Naval, like literally, like he wasn't even like recording his Periscope live stream.
Yeah.
Like the first things I did was from his Periscope live streams that some people on the comments would say, "Can I record the screen and then upload it to YouTube?" And he would say, like, "Yeah, sure, do that." So he's super open with this kind of thing about people using stuff. If it's building, sort of putting it into a supply chain of value and
Hmm.
actually create something like unique from that. I think he said this, I think, from a podcast. It's probably from the Tim Ferriss podcast, I think, where he would say that this copyright thing is very very dumb, because he sort of makes the comparison with software, where you have in GitHub, you have a lot of people uploading their software and everything, and people will use it as a Lego pieces, right, to build their own kind of thing. And so he thinks in the same way for content, where people can take like bits of content from places and build their own unique like content kind of thing.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense.
Yeah, so that also was a lucky factor that he's super like pro, and using like other people's things to sort of help create your own thing with your own touch. So that also helped it on the mix of the copyright act law, and also he being super eager to that.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, I suspect that is like to use Dua Lipa versus him as an example is that Dua Lipa's livelihood is based upon her
song,
artistic,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you're
and like
touching
and
on the
Naval
other
is
factor.
not.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
is the other factor of the five factors that I want to talk about. Yeah, this is the other factor, which is that is if it's like the thing you are producing, and that you are taking this third party content, this thing
yeah.
that you're producing is a market substitute for the original pieces.
What does that mean?
So if the thing I create is going to economically uh,
Degrade, like, or somehow
degrade
like, yeah,
the
okay, you make,
original things that
yeah,
you have taken. Exactly. So an example would be like, of course, if I take literally the song of Dua Lipa, and I get 100 million views, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with Dua Lipa, but all the economic value comes to me, right? Because
yeah,
I uploaded that thing. So obviously they're going to take it down, so that because I'm economically taking from her, right?
got it.
So the factor in the copyright act law, this factor is that the thing that you produce is not economically degrading the original bits, the original pieces.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
makes sense.
I always ask this question myself, and see if yes or not, and then if not, I proceed with it.
And how do you deal with, you and I were talking prior to the show of like also highlights from Kindle or from written works. I know you're a fan of Taleb and a lot of his work, his written work. And if you take something he's written and you post it, how much of it are you allowed to post? Might not really be the right question, but
Yeah.
like, is there a part where you are somehow infringing upon his copyright if you publish 10 lines of his book, 10 pages of his book, 10 paragraphs of his book? Like, what is the, how far, yeah,
Yeah. That's the
how much of his work are you allowed to publish on your own site? Do you know? Let's say.
there's not a clear cut
Okay.
of how much you can do, but there's something called the rule of substantiality, which is how much of another person's work you can use for your work, right? So if it's something like 0.5% or even 1%, and then the thing here is that you have to mix all of these five factors, right? When you mix them all, it's like then it's like almost like it doesn't look at all like you are just like pirating the content.
Yeah, you've made your
And
own thing out of it then.
sorry.
You've made your own thing. You take
Yeah,
these
yeah,
different five
exactly.
factors, and by the
That's
end
the
of it,
key.
like,
That's
yeah,
the key, exactly. So this is one of the rules, the rule of substantiality. And for instance, in the case of Joe Rogan episode, it's 2 hours, and so I take 5 minutes from that. Is much better than another content creator that has made a 20-minute video, and I'm taking 5 minutes from that, right? Because in the first case, it's like 2.5% or something like that,
Hmm.
and in the
Hmm.
other case, it's like 25%
Hmm.
of his original content.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then another thing is like a real cool thing that is very favorable for copyright is to mix it with like a content from yet other sources. Like I
Hmm.
get a bit from Naval, then I get a bit from Monish Pabrai, then I get a bit from Charlie, or even the same person but from a different source, right?
Yeah.
Because that
One
way
book
it's
versus another book, one speech, and then something you said on a podcast, like they're different.
exactly
Yeah.
because that way it sort of looks like a
Hmm.
research work,
Hmm.
like in or like a research paper, where you are like creating this paper, and you're taking reference from everywhere. You're taking this from this place, you're taking this from that place, and you almost look like a research kind of work, right? Where you're referencing everything and all that. It kind of starts looking like that. Yeah.
But yet you are monetizing it, like I mean, you
Yeah,
have
for
ads
sure.
running on YouTube. Yeah, it's not a pure research work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing with combining with all these factors. But there's never like a clear cut if you are completely risk free or not, right? It's just it's very subjective. I mean, it's just like the way it works is like, and on YouTube they can make you like the copyright claim, but you can also like say no, this was fair use, right? And then it's like they have to like reply to that, and the reply is like a court order,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or they are like, okay, we are not going to like follow
Pursue
this,
this.
right? we,
Yeah,
we are
keep
going
going
to
after
like
it.
leave it like that, or we can like talk it like separately. You can exchange the contact and talk it through before going to the court. But you can like if you like escalate it, you can definitely go to the court, and then the court decides whether it was fair use or it was not fair use.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they say it's fair use, then I can leave the content on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, this thing is like it will be like it usually never happens, right? Because it's like typically one side already knows that has a lot like the odds in their favor or not, right? So depending on who has like the odds, or if it's really like 50-50, you can probably talk it. Yeah.
Well, there's also the question of who has the most resources, right? Like who's willing to
Yeah,
pursue it.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
the
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So one of the things that had come up to me as I was thinking about this show with you is, I think for people who are not familiar with you, let me just say this: like most kids in their 20s, you're in your late 20s at this point. They're off working somewhere for the man. Um, and I say the man, obviously with air quotes, like they're usually in a corporate job.
Oh
You're
yeah,
not
yeah.
doing that. You and I were talking before the show.
I
You're
did it for a few months.
yeah, a few months. Okay, you're not doing yeah, like um,
Taught me a
you're
lot.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the question is like why not, and how do you think about a career now? Are you a content creator? Like, how do you see yourself?
I see myself as um, so
As what?
Sam Sell, like the guy, the real estate mogul,
Oh,
right?
Samsel. Yeah,
There's
yeah.
this guy
Thank you.
Sam
Yeah,
Sell.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he has this book, right? The subtle art. How is it called? I think I'm mixing it with Mark Manson's title right
That's the
now.
one I know.
Something
Okay, I
about
was like, I know the Mark Manson book, The Subtle
yeah,
Art. Yeah, I can
something about
look.
the subtle.
Let me
Or
look.
okay, yeah.
You keep going. Like keep going. It was a book about Samsel. We'll find it. Add it to the show notes. Keep going. What's the what? Yeah, you take a quick look.
It's yeah. So basically, in that book, okay, yeah. Am I being too subtle? Is the title.
Oh, am I being too subtle? Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah, yeah,
Nothing about nothing. There's no art of subtleness or anything.
yeah.
Okay. So he like I think he shared like the one of his like stories when he was in Africa, and he was smoking weed with some people, and then someone asked him. He was already a billionaire at that point, and but
Okay.
someone like asked him like, "What do you do for a living?" And he was just smoking pot in the beach. We're just watching the waves, and he said, "I'm a professional opportunist."
Mm.
Yeah, and he said that since he said that, he always like says when someone asks him like, "What you like for a living?" or something like that. He always like that line sort of stayed with him, and that really like resonated 100% with me. I don't see myself as a clear like title or anything like. I also don't like to be in like a box, right? Because I feel like it could like constrain my growth or where my curiosity wants to take me. And so I would say that that same line of being a professional opportunist
Okay.
and always sort of guided through my curiosity, through my genuine curiosity. Yeah,
Got it. Okay. So a
I
professional
should say.
opportunist guided
Yeah,
by guided by your genuine curiosity.
that's it. That's it. Yeah, it's very simple.
So then, if you are a professional opportunist guided by your genuine curiosity, is picking nuggets in the little almanac a stepping stone? Maybe that's not the right word for it. Let's call it a stepping stone to something else. And what I mean by that is, in both of your projects, you're looking at what you call influential doers,
Yeah.
people like Charlie Munger, Steve Jobs, Naval, Bezos is another example. Like all of these guys have done something professionally, and then they get asked subsequent to that, "Hey, what do you think about human psychology? Hey, what do you think about what is a life well lived? Hey, what do you think about you know, like more like let's call it esoteric questions or philosophical questions." So,
Yeah.
from my perspective, as you're working now, do you see what you're doing as like a precursor to, I don't know, setting up a rocket company to try to put a man on Mars or something else, right? Like
No,
I think you want to
yeah,
do something. I think you want to do something, not just talk about influential doers. It's like I think you're fascinated by the influential doers,
mm,
but
yeah.
you would also like to be one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big dilemma, but I actually love what I do every day with like picking nuggets and little almanac and the essays as well. Um, so I just like do that, and then whenever I have like there's something like I'm like for instance executing on a new video, and then something will like come to my mind, and then I will try to like explore it. But I always sort of explore or try to plan on things, and from already being like executing. Um, I don't usually have like long term plans or even like medium term plans. I just like to like every day. I go and I execute, and then I from that execution I get new ideas, and then may those new ideas could or could not become plans in the medium term or not. Um, but I feel it always like stems from doing, right?
Hmm. And
Although
really from your
it's
curiosity.
not doing. Sorry.
And really from your curiosity. It's like every
Yeah,
day
yeah,
is day zero in terms of curiosity. It's like, what am I curious about today? Right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Although it's a little bit different from the people that I make the content from, because what I'm doing is like content dissemination, and that might stem from that might become like a stepping like stone for something else. But right now I love this trajectory, but the thing is especially when I look backwards, I see that there's been like a growth in, first I just was like with the YouTube channel, and then now with the little almanac, and even with the SEO traffic for little almanac. And so if I just look backwards, um, it looks like it's like building some sort of trajectory, even though from the present onto the future is hard to see it. I
Hmm.
think it's easier to like do things and then have the ideas and then and then execute these new ideas, and then as you execute, you start getting these new paths, and you make the way up. Yeah, I think it was like this actually like this is what I've been doing, but also I feel it was definitely was just Jensen Huang who put it into the line. You know what I'm saying here is already like the kind of line, right? Jensen Huang is like when people ask him, right, what's his, if he has like a long term plan, medium term plan, he's like, I have no plan whatsoever. It's just what it's just what I'm doing, like in today, what I'm going to do today, and that execution of today is going to take me, is going to produce a new idea, which, and then that new idea I'm going to go for it, like whenever I finish what I'm doing right now, right? Or even not, if it's that important. And so is that kind of thing, and that really resonated with me, because looking backwards and what I like my path to be, uh, I feel it's very aligned with that philosophy.
Yeah, and what you're talking about reminded me of a bit that you wrote on YouTube as far as, well, let's call it community notes goes. You wrote, so is it all about luck then? I think if we look at it on an individual project basis, looking at a single project, luck plays a big role, but luck's role decreases as the total number of projects increases, i.e., you keep learning and adapting. So thus, over a long enough period of time and enough projects, luck plays a significantly lower role in the entrepreneur's success, maybe even an insignificant one. And so the reason I say that is because I think what you're describing is you're showing up every day, you keep taking agency, which is something you and I will get into later about why we both care about it, but trying, testing, doing something, and you're not, yeah, it's like you're not lost in the thinking about it. There is output happening every day. And when you look back on it, you can see a clearer path to it, let's say. But at the moment, today, you don't necessarily say, I'm doing this because in 6 months I want to be, yeah,
Yeah, I
this
mean,
other
there's
thing,
the
right?
there's the Steve Jobs quote, right, about the dots, connecting the dots.
What does
you
he
can't
say?
you, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. I guess
Hmm.
it's going to the same thing, I guess. Like
Hmm.
when he took this calligraphy course, and he had no idea how this was going to be useful for his quote unquote career or
Yep.
profession, but he
Yep.
just like loved the way, like the way they would like do these like letters, right? And he was like really really curious about how to make this calligraphy, the different types of calligraphy and all that. And so he spent like months learning this, and he had no idea how this is going to contribute for his like career, his professional path whatsoever. But then, he said, after 5 years or something like that, it all came back when we had to decide what type of typography we're going to use in the iPhone or the Mac.
Hmm. Hmm. Makes
Yeah,
sense. Go ahead.
so it's trusting, just trusting that the dots will connect.
Is there also a bit of economic opportunism? And what I mean by that question is, okay, cool. You're from Ecuador. You and your family moved to Spain. As you and I talked about prior to the call, vast majority of your your viewers, readers, consumers of your content, they're Americans or they're in the States, right? I don't necessarily know if they're Americans, but it's in English, tends to be focused around,
uh,
um,
yeah, and
yeah,
India, US,
India and the
top
US, okay?
countries,
Yeah.
top countries.
And so, like, as you're watching what's happening in the States, amazing place to do business. What you like, what the US produces as far as, let's call it content and economically, and
Yeah,
yet you're not physically in the States. So, but yet, Substack's a US company. YouTube is a US subsidiary of Google. And so you're in, let's call it Pax Americana, like
yeah, yeah,
the ecosystem.
yeah.
So is this a way to get into the US without being physically in the US, right?
Mm.
Like, it's the same thing with English. Like in your bio, you talked about that you were frustrated with how your level of English was, and then at 20, you were like, "I'm just going to get better at this," and started watching a lot of, I think,
Yeah,
yeah, American content. I don't know what it was, whether it was
yeah.
TV, movies,
Yeah,
podcasts,
Netflix,
everything.
Netflix. When I
Netflix.
was
Okay, yeah,
18, I switched everything to because I was like spending so much time like watching series and these kind of things. And then I
yeah.
was like, okay, maybe if I just put it in English, I'm already like learning English, right?
Mm.
And then I
A better
stopped
use of the
watching.
time.
Sorry?
A
Yeah,
better use of
yeah,
the
better
time,
use
right?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
then I
yeah,
realized this is still BS. And then I
yeah,
realized this is still BS. I'm just going to cut off this Netflix thing, whatever. I'm not because not, then I became really curious about investing, finance, and then everything came from YouTube and Spotify. That's it. And then I haven't had Netflix subscription since probably for about 6 or 7 years, something.
yeah. Cool.
But
Yeah,
everything from YouTube and Spotify, of course, everything from in English,
yeah.
except two things: taxes and I think airplane security. That's it. The rest is like this is a no-brainer to go for the English because that's where the best content is just created in English,
Mm.
unless it's very a very local thing,
Yeah,
like the taxes thing,
yeah,
and it's not even because it's the best. It's just because no American is going to talk about Spanish taxes.
for
That's
sure.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until ChatGPT will catch up with the taxes people here, but it's not there yet, I think. So
So,
yeah, everything English. It's just because it's the best content. And my desire for the English was not so much to break into the US so much. What I was thinking is that the highest quality stuff is almost always created in English. So I want to really like have English like I talk Spanish
mm-hmm,
at the same level
mm-hmm,
to never miss anything of this. Like I can go like straight to the source of something that is like really good, like a really good book that is not translated into Spanish, or even if it's translated to Spanish, there's a lot of loss in translation, right?
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
so I always go
Or
for the
translator's
English. Yeah.
discretion, right? Like you want to go see
Yeah,
what the
yeah,
person actually said,
exactly. I
and
want
you,
to see
yeah,
what the person says. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. That's also something that I like about my YouTube channel. That it's actually what these people say. It's not me trying to like other content creators that are like saying, these are the 10 principles of Naval or Nafsin, whatever, and it's them talking, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes like we have so many biases that sometimes you have certainty that this person is referring to this thing, but that's totally wrong, right? And in the case of Nassim Taleb, it's like 50% odds that you get it wrong, probably. Yeah. So that's something I really like, that it comes from the source and there are no like filters through it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah,
Taleb is a funny one because he talks in a way. I want to find one of his quotes that you recently highlighted. That
he
will.
writes like it's a novel. I think that's what I love also about what I love about his books. It's like you're reading a novel, but it's a nonfiction book, right?
Yeah, yeah. He kind of, yeah, and he uses words that are not common for the average, I think, English speaker. Right. I'm going to read a little
Mm.
bit of. He wrote this here. He says, and you quoted this: "To have a stable social life, filter out those who get easily offended by offending them early on." Okay, that was his statement. To have a stable social life, filter out those who get easily offended by offending them early on. And he
Yeah.
says beneath it in to explain, he says, as usual, some people are getting the aphorism wrong. Americans don't really use aphorism all that much, but so
Okay.
as usual, some people are getting the aphorism wrong. It does not mean one should offend people. It means that if people will eventually end up being offended, it is much better early than late. Capiche? So, and I think you like it because it's, yeah, it does sound almost like a novel. It's also thought
Yeah.
provoking, and it's contrarian, right? It's a contrarian take.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
thrives on being a bit of a contrarian, right? And
Yeah.
taking, yeah.
Absolutely. And YouTube also loves that contrarian things.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have like a checklist for making like my YouTube titles and my thumbnails. And one of the things is that it challenges assumptions.
Hmm.
And yeah, so because challenging assumptions create a lot of curiosity. So there are many things that create curiosity. One of the things is challenging assumptions. Another thing is like contrasting stuff. Like for instance, uh, this This silly small trick made me $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a contrast between a silly small trick and $1 million. So that picks up a lot of curiosity, that contrast.
Hmm.
And then other things like making like listicles, it makes us like curious to know, oh, what's this thing, and the number two and the number three and the number four. And yeah, I think maybe there's like two more or something. But yeah.
Julio, tell me, what is your process like? How does this start? And I know that's a bad question, so let me reframe it in the way of you sit down. If you look at your channel, okay, you might make a video. It's certainly not every day. It's not every week. Um,
It's not even
it's
every month sometimes,
Yeah. So let's say it's once every 2 months, right? So
on average, yeah.
it's a labor of love. You're conscious about it. You've thought about it. How do you pick nowadays what you want to cover or why?
Yeah. First, before answering this question, I think the philosophy I kind of follow is to really think through like very hard is if this is going to be like a really good video. And maybe and I do like the whole process. Probably that's why it takes me like so long. Although I think if when I start executing, it's about 2 weeks, 3 weeks of work. But what I have in my mind is that I want this content not to be like a um, something that is going to be like seen for 1 month.
Hmm.
I want to create something that is going to be like timeless, and someone 10 years from now is still going to get value from it, right? And that's actually one of the checks on my checklist, which is that if this content that I'm creating would be interesting for people 20 years ago. Because if it's interesting for people 20 years ago, it means that it's very likely that it will be interesting for people 20 years in the future.
Hmm.
That's the kind of like the Lindy effect, right? That Nassim Taleb talks about, and
Hmm.
that's actually what he actually said this, and I just added to my checklist. I like to
So
take
much.
stuff,
Yeah.
even
Well,
in my checklist. Yeah,
standing on
and
the
so
shoulders of giants, I think,
it's
is
like
what you
always,
put
always,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead, though.
And so I have this in my mind that I want to like this to be almost like a book, like a timeless book that people can go like over it like for months, for years, for decades. And so yeah, and in terms of my process, it's like I never like start with a blank sheet on Google Docs or anything. I have a list of titles. I think I have 40 pages right now of titles and ideas on a Google Doc that I've made through like 3 years, 4 years since I started. I've like put in like when I have like an idea about something, I just write it down there, and
Hmm.
then when I
It's not.
start
It's not.
actually,
Just to be clear, it's not in ClickUp.
it is not a click no.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got this Google
Uh,
Doc.
yeah, this Google Doc with 40 pages. Yeah, and when I get an idea, I put it in there, and then when I want to make a new video, I just scroll through it, and I see what still resonates. Because if it resonated two weeks ago and it still resonates now, it's probably going to be more timeless. That's kind of the way I think. And
Yeah,
so
you let the idea kind of settle for a bit, and then see you come
yeah,
back to it, and
absolutely,
it's not so
absolutely,
emotionally
because
charged.
yeah, 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 yeah. And that's something there from David Perel, or Perel, I think it is, that you are like sometimes so excited about an idea, and you think it's like it's such an amazing idea, and then you go all in, right? And then in the process you realize this idea actually sucks. Right? And so one of the things I do is like I take this idea, I think it's like amazing, or otherwise I wouldn't put it in this Google sheet. And then when I want to actually make a video, I go through it and I see it again, without any like mental context on it or everything, because that's also the way that the YouTube viewer is going to see it, right? They are only going to see the title, and that itself must like create all the interest, right? Because otherwise it's not going to click. So it's kind of like I'm doing kind of like I'm putting myself in the shoes of viewer, of like
Hmm.
scrolling through all these titles, this list of titles and ideas that I have, and see something that is like that stops my scrolling, and I'm like, wow, like this is amazing. And so when I have that click,
Caught
as I
you
know that this
again.
is the video, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, when I have that, it's like this is the video I need to make. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what then, if you would talk a little bit about your process, you and I were talking about it before the show, but I mean process wise, as far as you're using a tool called Readwise. I think that you're taking in content from your Kindle, you're taking in content from YouTube, you're taking in content from Twitter or X, maybe other places, sometimes a podcasts.
Yeah.
Let's use each one of those four: Kindle, YouTube, podcasts, and X. With what like how do you synthesize all that content that you're digesting and then get it out and into um, you know a a work of art? I don't know.
Yeah. So what has worked very well is, as you said, having my Readwise library, um, which takes all the sources, like all my Twitter bookmarks, my X bookmarks. It takes my YouTube transcriptions where I have like highlighted stuff. It takes my highlights from Kindle and all that. But for me, it doesn't stop there. What I do is like once every like 3 months or 2 months, is that I export all my highlights from Readwise into a CSV, and then through a series of Python programs that I've created, obviously with ChatGPT, otherwise I would no idea how to make that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I created all these programs so that it ends up being like a super clean database of nuggets, which
Mm.
actually that's one of the products I made also, which I promote, I think, in the description of YouTube videos and also in the newsletter, where it's like a lifetime value. I think it's for $80 or $90, and then you can see literally all like the nuggets that I have like taken, and that I use it as a tool for like content creation.
And it gets
And
updated.
sorry,
It gets updated. These like
gets
when you get.
updated. Yeah, every 2 months,
Yes.
3 months, I add the new content. Because I always have, right, like new bookmarks, new highlights from YouTube or Kindle. So it gets updated with that. I have to manually update it, and it actually takes me like 2 days to make this updating,
Yeah.
because, well, many reasons. I think one of the things that take me most time is like the YouTube transcriptions are super bad. So I
Mm.
actually take again the audio, and I send it to Descript, which is a tool that gives you like super clean transcripts. And then I take it from Descript. Although nowadays I just send it to ChatGPT. I don't use Descript anymore. I used to use that Descript, but since the last batches I've done, I just used ChatGPT, and it's amazing. I just put there like the nugget
The
from
audio
the
file.
YouTube transcript, and I'm like,
Okay.
clean it, don't change the words, but like make it like nice to read, right? With capitalization and everything, and it's amazing. So
And
that
then
takes me
what?
about 2 days every 2 months.
Yeah, but then you've got. So what about with a podcast? When you hear something, or are you not consuming audio podcast? You're only doing this with
Uh,
YouTube videos.
no, I do. I mean, for audio, if it's only audio,
Yeah.
that's typically when I'm like walking somewhere.
Yeah.
Where I live, I walk everywhere. I rarely like go into like metro or like into buses, or I usually walk if it's up to a distance of 55 minutes.
Hmm.
And that for me, it's like the way I see it is an opportunity for me, obviously, to exercise a bit, but um, also to listen to these podcasts which are like audio only, because it's just like I've done it sometimes to like listen to the audio without walking, or just doing nothing, and it's terrible, right? I
Yeah.
mean, because you need to do something. I think it's not natural to the human being, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to see some fast facial expression or something. But when you're walking, right, like a million years ago, we would walk with other Homo sapiens, whatever, and and you don't have to see his face, right? Because when you're walking, it's not you're not supposed to see someone else's face. right?
Oh yeah,
You just hear the voice on your side, right?
yeah.
So I feel that aligns more with how we have evolved. And so when I walk, I put in the podcast, and it's amazing. Yeah, the podcast I love the most is one called Founders by David Senra. I don't know if you've listened to it.
No, I have not.
Very cool. And Acquired.
Okay,
And another one we just go philosophize this. These are my
okay.
three top ones. Yeah.
But what? But if you hear something as you're walking, you're
Yeah.
in the 50th minute of your walk, right?
Oh yeah. I noted down on my Google Keep. I noted down on my Google Keep.
Okay, so that's where I
I
was getting at this. So you take like a
yeah.
screenshot, you pull out your phone and go, "This was at the 52nd minute of this podcast."
I don't even have to do that because there's like a way where you can like share the timestamp on Spotify, the
Got it.
timestamp link. Like you can
Okay.
do it on YouTube, you can also do it with Spotify. And I will add that link into like a note on Google Keep. And just say like it comes from this podcast, whatever. And then I would also add that into the my Nuggets database. But I would manually add that because
Yeah.
that's not gonna go into like Readwise. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So and you're doing all this yourself. You don't have a VA, somebody. I don't think you have like.
No, 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 no.
No. Yeah. Because they're your nuggets. Let's say, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've definitely thought about outsourcing some parts of the process. I mean, definitely, people like every almost every time I talk with someone, right? The person will be like, "Why you are not outsourcing this or to that person or to this kind of audio engineers or visual like professional visual designers or whatever, right?" And I guess it sort of like quote unquote like makes sense, like from like an economic, maybe from like an economic perspective. Although long term, I don't think so, but it would be like definitely a valid economical rationale to see it. Um, but the way I see it is that um, if I start like outsourcing like all these like different parts, then it sort of misses like the like I feel like no one's gonna care more about your
About the
product
end
than the
product.
owner, right? Or the person who really has like you know, for instance, I'm like making like a video, right? And there's something happens about like I have like a new idea about something, and then I'm 2 days exploring that idea, right? I mean, if I outsource that, it's impossible. This is gonna happen like because of the incentives and all that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And just like the it's just like it would be like a super like different thing, I believe. And for me, it all stems from the quality of the product of the video in this case. Like I think everything is downstream from the quality of the product. So I'm kind of afraid also to like outsource and compromise quality because that's like the core thing, the most important thing, right? So I sort of I'm really like worried about compromising the thing that really makes everything kind of like go. Yeah. And actually this podcast I was telling you about, the Founders podcast by David Senra, and he made a clip like I think like 2 weeks ago where there was a video that, you know, showing Steve Jobs and Yvon Chouinard, the guy from Patagonia,
Yep.
and it would say that these they were the anti-business people, right? Because they were more like craftsmen, and they were more like you know, with trying to follow like
They
almost
were
like a
artists in a
love
way.
affair. Sorry.
Yeah. They were
Yeah, like a,
artists.
yeah, exactly. Like almost like a love affair for what they do and what they want to output into the world, and that comes like on top of the economic like output that I could produce. And so I like to see myself that way, like of being more of a craftsman rather than like a businessman.
Hmm.
And also, if you think about it, like with the leverage of media, you know, content, I think like these days, I think it's sometimes enough to be being a craftsman because of all the like the leverage that the media content gives you, right? Because like a person consumes it and the marginal cost of that is zero, right? But you are getting, like in my case, I've made like the calculations in my head. I get about half a penny
for
for
every
every
view.
every view on YouTube. Yeah, half a
Okay.
penny. I think it's like 5 euros for every thousand views or something. But the cost of producing that content for that person is zero, right? So if you get like good numbers on how many people's watching it, it's like it's just like you don't have to be like a businessman or anything, or think too much about anything. Like it's just gonna make money. Yeah,
Hmm. Is that what? But is that what you're seeing though, as far as your YouTube channel goes? Is that when you do this, when you take this craftsman attitude and pour your heart and soul into it? And I'm going to finish that question, but I do want to say something about what you said previously, which is another part of why you're doing it the way you're doing it and kind of keeping it all in house is you want to get better at these things. You wanted to become a better illustrator. You wanted to get better at copywriting. You wanted to get better. Like for you, it was the skills, and you looked at this and said, "I'm going to kind of force myself into a position where I have to develop better skills in order to." Yeah, like
yeah,
in order to improve, right? It's one of the reasons you and I work on these essays together on spreadgreatideas.org. Is you looked at like it's like I want to be a better writer, and this is a way to kind of like force me into doing it, you know.
for
And
sure. Yeah.
you know, it's and but so the where I was going with the original question, which I've totally forgotten by now. Where I was going
Well,
with the,
the craftsmanship on
yeah,
YouTube.
is that I think that from a monetization standpoint, you have stuff that came out like let's say 2 or 3 years ago. It might not be your best work now, but it's still your let's say the amount per hour of your work, the amount of money you make per hour is actually going up because it continues to accrue views. Is that right? Like videos from 2 or 3 years ago. That
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, there's many things that I've been like thinking about as you said these things.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, in the sense of like me creating a new YouTube video, I
yeah,
know that a part of that income is going to be like passive. Like a percentage of that income is not just gonna be like. I mean, most of it is gonna be in the next. I mean, in most cases, it's gonna be mostly like in the next 4 months the income,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
But then there's like a 10%, like the other 10%, 20% part that still is going to accrue every single month, and sometimes even like increases or like for instance I think the video that has become the most passive, kind of like passive in terms of like views and income and everything, is like another account, 11 rules for life. I think that one has like around 2,000 views every day. Like
Hmm.
right now, like it has I think 1.5k, 2k views every day. And I think I uploaded like around 3 years, or I think it was 2 years ago,
And
right?
where are those views coming from? And what I mean by that is, are they coming from people who they know Naval? You know, it was a play on Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. You know, I assume like, but so as Naval's popularity kind of
Yeah,
spikes and drops, um, Jordan
absolutely. I
Peterson's
mean
popularity spikes and drops, or is it that they're looking for just a general query of what are some rules for life, and YouTube keeps serving it up to
no
them?
way.
Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah,
that's the,
like I don't know.
that's the last
How
place. I
how do
mean,
they
a
get it?
general query about rules for life in YouTube is definitely not coming. I would confidently say that zero views a day comes from that.
Okay.
And I think it's multifactorial. I think there's many places that views are coming. I mean, just looking at the way that YouTube organizes the like where the views are coming from, it's like, that you have the browse features, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically suggestions on the homepage and on watch next video when you end like one video, right? And maybe also like the videos that when you're watching one video, you have other videos like listed at the right if you're on
Hmm.
desktop, Yeah,
Hmm.
so all of that is like the browse features. So 85% it comes from browse features. Only
Bingo.
about
Okay.
10% comes from SEO, like YouTube SEO, proper like searching in the search box. I think it's mostly like that. I would say like the most likely funnel is like someone like got interested somehow with from Naval. Maybe he read something on, and I said he because 95% are male.
Hmm.
He read something, or 5% women. Okay, read something on Twitter or X, and they go to like YouTube, search Naval or can't. Then they watch a podcast, and then they see suggested videos, and they see 11 rules for life, and they say, okay, nice. It's like it's going to give me like this from something that is really like compelling and interesting
Hmm.
from like many different sources, right? And I think that that idea actually came from the obviously Jordan Peterson's book 12 Rules for
Yep.
Life. That was
Yep.
my yeah.
Yeah.
And actually in the comments there's always like Jordan Peterson has 12. Because it's like 11 rules for life. So Jordan Peterson has 12 every single item. For Naval, Nassim as well, because Nassim I also did it 11 on
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
hook, though. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it creates a bit of curiosity as well, because people are familiar with the 12
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, and
But,
it's a valid, it's a tested title as well, right? It's already been like a bestseller book, like 12 Rules for
mhm.
Life. That's like a catchy kind of title, so I don't have to do the work myself. I can just take it and reframe it.
But do you know? Yeah, and I think to speak to what they become familiar with Naval some other way. They heard about him. They're like, "Yep, this guy's wise. He seems wise based on what I
Oh
saw
yeah,
of this
yeah,
one
yeah,
podcast." And so,
yeah,
therefore, yeah, I would love to know what his 11 rules for life are. Right, like because you do when if you've not listened to him before, he is a very wise man, and I think it's clear after you listen to him for a bit that you're like, yeah, I'd be curious to hear what this guy says about
yeah, 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 yeah,
different topics, because he's got a in my opinion a very solid framework and way of looking at the world, and
yeah,
contrarian as well. He's again, it's like I think he's an original thinker
yeah. And he talks really well,
in
right?
terms of
So
how he
like
explains
he
his
like the way
ideas,
he thinks. Sorry.
in terms of how he explains his ideas, or what.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he explains ideas like so well. Like, and Jeff Bezos, I think, is the other example. They have a really like clear mind because when you just listen to them, and maybe you don't realize it that much. But in my case, where I do like the notes and everything, I'm like, wow, like this guy is like really talking about something here. Then he talks about the other thing. Then he mixes them. Then he makes an example. Then he makes an analogy, then he references to the source of someone, so another person. Then he introduces some aphorism, and he mixes all these things, and it's like it's just so it's not even like just the nugget, the
Hmm.
substance, but
Hmm.
it's also how the substance is delivered. He delivers that substance like so well. So I think it's both things, right? He has the substance, and he also has like a very like super good way to deliver it.
So if you had to pick, who is your favorite? Do you have one? Let's name some of the people that you think are the influential doers. We've got Charlie Munger, Steve
Yeah,
Jobs,
yeah,
Naval Ravikant, Nicholas Nassim Taleb, excuse me. Who are some of the other ones that I don't know off the top of my head, like that you classify as influential doers? And which one do you, Jim Rohn? I don't know if he classifies an influential doer, but you might
yeah.
like him.
Actually, like I heard about a little bit about Jim Rohn
Yeah,
before we met, but
yeah.
like I just got like some quotes. I think I never like heard him talking. I think. But then you sent me the video about the best. How's
How to have your
the
best,
title?
how to have your
Yeah,
best year ever. Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, the 4 hour long video, and I watched it all like while I was like eating. When I was eating, I would
Mhm.
put it in like the YouTube, and I would see the video, right? And I completed these 4 hours like in 2 months or 1 month, I think. And yeah, I mean, I love Jim Rohn because also like when I first heard Jim Rohn, I already had a lot of context from other people in my mind. I already had the context of Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, Monish Pabrai, Naval Ravikant, Jeff Bezos, uh, and the things that Jim Rohn like were saying for me, the thing that most called my attention was that he would say it in one line
Hmm.
what Jeff Bezos saying it in 5 minutes or something.
Hmm.
He just encapsulates really well.
Hmm.
Like I think also
Hmm.
Naval does really well on Twitter on X. He just put it into one line, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like for instance, there's this line. I think it was really cool. I also have like a playlist on YouTube where I have like a few shorts from him. Like I think mainly when I'm running, just to inspire myself because that's when I need most motivation when I'm running and I'm really tired. And he
Don't
said
wish it were
like,
easier, wish you were
yeah,
better.
that's one of those. Yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, I mean, and then they put, of course, they put the super inspirational music on YouTube,
Yeah.
and it's just oh my god. And then I just want to run faster, right?
Yeah.
Like the one I was thinking is work harder on yourself than you do on your job, for
Bingo.
instance.
Yep.
Yeah, that was so good. So he has so many
Take
of
care of your
these.
body. Take care of your body. It's the only place you've got to live. That's one of his that I always liked.
Hmm.
Take care of your
A
body. It's
good
the only
one. Yeah,
place
it's a
you've got
great
to
one.
live. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're very thoughtful. They're very, very thoughtful. I come across them all the time and I'm like, man, OG, Jim Rohn.
yeah. And Tony Robbins, he learned from him, right?
Hmm.
Like Jim was his mentor, right?
Hmm.
I mean, Tony got way more like fame than him, but he was his mentor. Yeah, I
Almost.
definitely like more Jim Rohn than Tony Robbins actually. Like just
Me
the way
too.
that I'm not sure if it's the substance or the way like they speak. I think it's more the way that Jim Rohn speaks because they both sort of deliver like great substance. But I prefer how Jim Rohn talks compared to Tony Robbins.
Yeah, he's more. I would listen to Jim Rohn. You're talking about you have the speech in front of you while you were eating and whatnot. I mean, I would be on my motorcycle in Bali. It was about an hour drive, place I had to go on a regular basis, and I would put the speech in and listen to it. And I couldn't do the whole speech, the 4 hours of it, but I could pick up parts of it during that hour and over again. And it was just like listening to, I don't know, your favorite uncle or
Yeah.
somebody that you felt gave a damn, had your best interest at heart, and was not preaching at you, but was like lovingly nudging you a bit to step it up. You know,
Yep.
and he had an analogy that he used, which was, if you have a child who isn't doing so well in school, do you tell them, "Oh, you're trying your hardest. It's okay." He's like, "No." He's like, "They make the chairs a certain size in third grade because you can't stay there." He's like, "You gotta, you gotta advance. The chairs are too small. You're gonna outgrow your chair." And he does it in this kind of like slightly nasally voice, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you'd listen to him and go, "Yeah, it's like totally true. Like this dude's he's hit the nail on the head." I don't know. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I'm glad that you appreciate that. How to have your best year ever is probably the single piece of content I've shared with more people than anything else. I will link to it in the show notes because I like it so much. But let's go
Perfect.
back to this because you're getting ready to go to Bali, and I saw another quote that you posted from a guy named Vitali Katsenelison. Okay, I might butcher his name. Apologies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it says
yeah.
people fail to realize that the principal thing you can learn from a professor is how to be a professor, and the chief thing you can learn from, say, a life coach or inspirational speaker is how to become a life coach or inspirational speaker. So, why do you find that so true? Why did you like that?
Well, because we have a lot of that in the world, and it just lacks essential skin in the game.
Mm,
I think it's as simple as that. It's like the thing they are trying to teach. They don't have the skin in the game to actually like talk from having walked the walk. You know,
mm,
and that's also why I'm like super like thoughtful of giving like my like, or when I say something I'm always like, this is my opinion, this is my reflection, this is not a rule for you or anything like that.
yep.
And essentially what I do is like I take this information from Naval, I found it amazing, I share it with the notes that I would do anyways, because
Hmm.
I before I doing the YouTube channel I will always take notes from these videos. and I would just share it, and then I would like put in my reflections, right? But there's no
Julio says
like you
this.
have
It's
to
more
do
like,
this.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I always and whenever I want to like learn from something, I always look for a person who has like I'm 100% sure that he has got like skin in the game and actually came out like successful from it. And then you can have like things like survivorship bias, so you can like really put all into what someone says. But yeah, so there are like ways to, I would say, make sure that the source from where you are learning something is actually like the highest signal as possible.
Hmm.
So my filter would be right skin in the game, and then maybe have a few sources so there's it's not too biased with the survivorship bias in the case of entrepreneurship. And I think just I mean the skin in the game is like 95% of the thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you don't need to like really like look to many more factors, honestly.
Well, it ties in with the skin in the game ties in with one of the essays you wrote on spreadgoodideas.org, which is teachers versus mentors versus gurus, the quest to find the best instructor, right?
Yeah.
Because partially what we're talking about here is somebody who, let's say, is a teacher versus a mentor or a guru, and how to distinguish between the three of them. Do you remember kind of what you wrote and how you defined the difference between the three?
Yeah, so
I
I think
can
in the
quote
case
it
of
if you want me to.
the
I
in the
can go
case
find
no,
it.
don't worry about it. In the case of the
Okay.
guru, I feel like it was like someone who got really successful in one area of life, and
Yeah.
then use that as a validator to in order to give advice in a broad spectrum of areas in life,
Hmm.
basically.
Hmm. Bingo.
So like if Warren Buffett, got really successful in investing in business, and then he, gives advice in how to live your life and all that. Yeah, and he even himself said, when someone asked him in a Berkshire Hathaway meeting, something like super philosophical or something like that, he's like, um, that not because like he got successful in business, he's going to know how what's the best for someone to live his life or something, right? But Charlie Munger would be way better in that, because he has like an interest in more things, and he has gone through many like big misfortunes in life, and he has like gone ahead and never let that stop his like
His journey. Let's say no.
his journey. Yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to ask that because it's because Munger would get asked. You have somebody who's a billionaire, very successful investor. If you're not familiar with Charlie Munger, there's an excellent book about him called Poor Charlie's Almanac. He was Warren Buffett's business partner for, I don't know, 40, 50 years off the top of my head. And, but they would ask him for advice about other things in life. They'd say, how do I attract a good spouse? Or how do I honor my parents? And he had thoughts about a lot of this stuff, but I think he did not offer those kind of things up unless somebody specifically asked him. And then he had very
yeah,
insightful takes on it, but he was not sharing it. It was when asked, let's say, right?
yeah. It was when on demand. It
It
was
was
on
when
demand.
solicited.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's
absolutely.
the
That's a
difference,
big
is because
difference. Yeah,
yeah, because I think that the guru is quite keen to tell you without you necessarily asking their opinion on certain topics, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so, how do you think about what's a teacher and what's a mentor? What's the difference between those two?
So in the case of the teacher, is like when there is like absolutely no skin in the game.
A professor, let's say.
A professor, exactly. So
Yeah.
for instance, this comes to mind. My maybe my finance teacher when I was doing a master's degree, and I remember I got into this master's degree because I got really curious about you investing and listening to Monish Pabrai, and he would like Monish would be like so hardcore, so fan of the concept of compounding. He would like teach like over and over again in every session about the chess thing about the rice, where you put one rice and then you double it in every single square, and then you end up with more rice than the whole like kingdom or even the whole earth can produce.
Hmm. Yeah, I do know this, and it's yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
We will link to this in the
uh,
show notes. But yeah, yeah
so
this
exactly.
piques your curiosity. Talk about compound interest or compounding in
Yeah.
general. You
Yeah.
decide to sign up for. Is this an MBA or what's your master's?
It was for people coming from a technical background. So I did my bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. So it's from people with a technical background that wants to do some business management thing,
Hmm.
and for 1 year. But it's not an MBA. Actually, I didn't even have a job. Right? And most people that go for MBA, they previously have like a job. I went straight like from the degree to that because I got curious about the stock market and investing and trying to make money. And yeah, so it was just a 1 year thing, master's degree in management, but not an MBA. So, but basically,
You're sitting in
it
this
made
finance class in the masters. Yeah, that you were going somewhere with the
yeah,
story.
it just like created this contrast for me already, like from experience, from Monish Babrai, who would be the actually like the mentor, right? Someone with like 300% or like skin in the game, like absolute skin in the game, and like teaching to people, what like his experiences, his and he would be like super passionate about what he says and super confident, right? And if you like ask him, about why does he do it, this thing that way, he would like immediately say it's because of this, right? With full
Full
certainty,
authority,
but
full confidence.
full
Yeah, that's
full
right. That's right.
confidence, right? Because
Yeah,
he's doing it, right? He's doing it, and if he's doing it and his money and he's putting hundreds of millions of dollars there, he probably has thought about it quite enough, right? And but of course, and he's also open to consider new ways to see things, right? But the things that he do, he's like pretty sure why he's doing it, right? Where in the case of my finance teacher, we would like get to the I already saw previously on the slides that we were going to get to the chapter of compounding, so I was curious about how is this person going to teach it and how it's going to be different or maybe the same as what I learned from Monish Fabrai, right? And literally explain it in 1 minute or 2 minutes,
mm,
like not a big
mm.
deal, like not even worth you paying attention to the slide, and he just like scroll it like in 30 seconds we are into the next slide, and like super
And
stereo,
you're like,
like
whoa, whoa, whoa!
sterilized.
This is another. This is almost like the force of gravity. It's
Yeah,
this is the eighth wonder of the world.
the eighth wonder, exactly. Monish was like, this is the eighth wonder of the world. And in case of my finance teacher, it was just another slide from the deck of 60 slides. It was
Yeah,
just the other slide, you know. No emotion whatsoever, no like anything. Because I just think that for this teacher, probably everything is just concepts, everything is just theory, right? It's like this quote from Yogi Berra, which I actually got it from Nassim Taleb, but it's from Yogi Berra, where he said like, in theory there's no difference between practice and theory, but in practice there is
yeah,
a difference.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's
so
it's
so
it's
yeah,
Tyson's. It's Mike Tyson's quote as well, which is everyone's got a plan till they're punched in the face.
exactly, yeah,
It's the
exactly.
same. Yeah, they don't have skin in the
Yeah,
game, right? Like it's all
yeah,
theory.
yeah, yeah. Monish is coming from the bottom up, from what actually works, and what actually you probably need to pay attention to, right? And then the other stuff is like non-relevant, and you probably don't need to see it. Like for instance, the CAPM equation, the capital pricing model, or I think something like
Yeah,
that, where you have a beta, and you have the variance and the covariance and all these kind of things. Like for my finance teacher, he would put the same amount of energy to that or even more than to the concept of compounding, right? Whereas for Monish, is like that doesn't even appear in his sessions, but when someone brings it, right, and makes a question about the Kaplan model or something like super like economic model specific or finance specific, he's like, you just have to teach that to the trash. You're never going to use it if you actually want to make money in business or investing. And just
hmm,
focus on the compounding, focus
hmm,
on investing in business that there's a margin of safety, and where it's in your circle of competence and you understand the business, and when you buy it, you think you are an owner of the business, right, and just equity holder, right, and just this kind of mental shifts that you just get, and the rest is just doing, and just learning from the doing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that,
Super
I think
profound.
that creates, I think, already like the difference, right, between what's a mentor, what's a pure academic teacher.
Yeah.
I would argue that's entirely difference between them. So you
Amazing.
want to look for I want to look for mentors, of course. I
Yeah, me
always make
too.
sure like has skin in the game, right? Otherwise, it's like he just like read like whatever is in the curriculum, the academic curriculum, right? And even the correct academic curriculum is not even like they decided this is going to be the curriculum. The teacher decided it was just passed to them, right, by the dean of the university, whatever. And maybe there's a conflict of interest on what they want the teachers to teach. I mean, the clear example is in healthcare system, right? I mean that the manual for healthcare was provided by Rockefeller.
I don't know the story. What's the story with
I mean,
the men?
I can't verify this. Okay, I read it in the book from, but she's an MD. Casey Means. It's a book called Good Energy,
Okay.
and basically she argued that the manual procedure, like what you actually have to do as an MD and as a surgeon, it came from Rockefeller and a surgeon called I don't remember his name, but his surname is Halstead, something like that.
Okay.
Rockefeller got very interested in the healthcare area because he realized that some byproducts of his oil operations can be used as drugs,
Hmm.
right? And so obviously you can imagine how this manual is. It's basically it's all drug based intervention, right? Don't even
Hmm.
look at nutrition, exercise, sleep,
Lifestyle.
all of
Yep.
that. Yeah, it's all about you have this symptom, we have the drug that is going to manage your symptom, right? Even though it's not going to cure your root illness, because um, it probably comes from somewhere else, right? I mean, when you go to a doctor, right, and you have sinusitis, right, or something,
Hmm.
they will propose you a drug, they'll propose you a surgical operation, right? But those treatments are only to that symptom, right? But probably that symptom is just a manifestation of something bigger, right? Something that comes downstream from, let's say, metabolic dysfunction because you are eating too much ultra processed foods, or too much of that, or too much of this, or not getting too much sleep, or getting too much environmental toxins from all these like parabens and stuff which are in personal skincare products,
Hmm.
right? And just changing that can actually like take care of the all the symptoms that you have, right? And not only this manual that is very like drug based,
Centric.
intervention drug based, but also the fact that healthcare is just so siloed into like specific departments. We have like more than 50 departments, right? If you have problem with your nose, you go to the person who's specialized in noses, right? How do you call that? Like your
Yeah.
ornitor, something
We
like
say that.
that.
No, we call him ENT, ear, nose, and throat
Yeah,
doctor. Yeah.
exactly. So he is never going to look at the big picture of your body, your entire body. He's only going to look at your nose. Right? But if that symptom is just a manifestation of something bigger, then he's never going to actually cure your root illness. He's just going to manage your symptom on the nose, because literally he's only allowed to treat for the nose and nothing else, right?
Mm.
But
Mm.
everything is like in the body, everything is like universal within your body, right? Something that happens in your nose could be produced by another thing that was caused in another part of your body, right? Or the way your cells produce energy, or your level of,
Or
of,
by
of
your
blood sugar,
environment.
insulin, all these kind of things. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so siloed, and it's so drug like drug based intervention, even in Spain, right, where the drugs are free, right, but it's taxpayers money, so they don't give a damn if they have to pay it, right. And many of the politicians here have ties to big pharma, right. So as far as they are concerned, they don't give a damn if they have to pay like billions of dollars for the drugs, because it's all coming from taxpayers money, it's not coming from theirs money. So yeah, I don't know where it all came from, but
Who started with Rockefeller? And I asked you the story there.
Rockefeller. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, it ties in with another quote that you and I both like, which is "Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcome." That comes from Charlie Munger.
yeah,
Because what
yeah,
you're describing
yeah.
there is the incentive structure, and the incentive structure is
You
Rockefeller
see
wants
it
to.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's like when you
Yeah,
start to
it's
pull it
crazy.
back, you're like, dude, it's like crazy. It's like, what's the incentive here? Of course, this person's going to act this way. You know,
Yeah,
like
and many
they're
hospitals.
going to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And many hospitals has this like system of we're going to promote the doctor who bills the most, right?
Yeah,
And the person who bills the most is the person who gives the most drugs, right? So you're incentivized to give the drugs, or if you're a surgeon, you're incentivized to actually cut the patient, right? I
yeah,
mean, in one chapter of this book, Good Energy, which was mind blowing to me, or it's still mind blowing because I'm just halfway through it.
but you like it. You're
I
reading it.
love
Well,
it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
love it. Yeah, yeah. It's a
you,
part where the like MD, the Casey Means, right, the author of the book,
yeah,
and she said like she had this her roommate on residency during residency, where she was like specializing to be like a surgeon.
yeah. I have the
So
quote pulled up in front of me here from you.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'll
Man,
read
you,
it.
you you can read it. You
During
can read it.
yeah, during residency, one of
Okay.
my best friends was a cancer surgeon. This is from Casey. During the meeting with my mom's doctors, words my friend spoke years before they rang in my head. The words were, "If you walk through the doors of this surgical oncology department, you are going to get an operation, whether you need it or not. If you walk through the doors of the surgical oncology department, you're going to get an operation, whether you need it or not." And then the
Yeah.
quote that you like from Buffett that ties in with this Warren Buffett is, "Never ask a barber if you need a haircut. Never ask a barber if you need a haircut." Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, or
yeah.
never ask a bank if you want to have some interest rate in your money, or it's like
Yeah, but I
yeah, they
think there's
always
a
have
deep,
something.
there's a deeper truth there that is philosophical in the sense of saying, all right, that humans respond to incentives. You know that there is like
Yeah,
and that some people don't agree with that as a presupposition. They're like they don't. Yeah, I've had this discussion. People are like, of
I
course,
agree.
people. It's like look at the incentives, and you can see the outcome. And they're like, well, it might have been because of this, that, and the other. I'm like, no, the incentive structure is such that it just rewards this particular behavior, and I don't know why. To me, that's not. To me, that's common sense. But I have heard people who they do not like that. I don't, and I
Yeah. No, I think, and I've thought about this a lot, because I think this is like universal. Like a lot of people think that it can't be that way because it's like too cynic. Like people
maybe
only
is that
care
why?
about this economic. Like I mean, in the case of like the surgeon, right, that he's going to cut you just because he wants to bill.
Mm,
It can be thought about, oh, that's too cynic way of seeing it. It's probably not what's
yeah,
happening, right, this person will
yeah,
say. But the thing I'm thinking is like, yes, it's like it's kind of cynic, but at the same time, the thing is that the human being has ways to justify his behavior as something good, right? Like
hmm,
the surgeon is never going to justify as I'm doing this, I'm literally cutting through this human because I'm going to build more, I'm going to make more money, I'm going to get that jet, right? That's not. I don't think that's. I mean, maybe some cases, but I think this like on the normal average human being. I think what goes on is that he has justified that behavior. Like for instance, I'm doing this because, and I have this reason and this reason and this reason, and these are all reasons that make you feel good about yourself,
hmm,
right? And then
hmm,
you can go ahead and do it. And I've realized this because I have reflected on some behaviors that I have that are like negative behaviors, and sometimes they are being like induced by or conduced by some sort of incentive. And the way I think when I act upon this negative behavior, it's never like, oh, I'm doing it because of this incentive. It's way more subtle, right? I'm
Mm.
always like, I'm doing this because reason one, reason two, reason three, reason four, which I like the reasons and make me feel good about myself and make me feel good about what I'm doing, but they ultimately lead to that incentive.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's the thing. Yeah. That, like, because you also have, like, in humans, you have the cognitive dissonance, right? Like for the normal human, he can't process the thought that he's just going to cut through a human just to build more money, right? So they will create pretexts. They will create like any reasons that will dissipate this cognitive dissonance, and
Dissonance.
so
Yeah.
they can dissonance, yeah, and so they can keep on with their job, right? Because they literally have no, or many people think that they have no alternative, right? I mean, if I stop being a surgeon, what else am I going to do, right? I mean, I went
Mhm.
through 10 years of studying for this, and I have
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt for this, and
Mhm.
now I'm just going to choose to be like a baker, like working a bakery making bread.
There's
um
also confirmation bias there. That's another one of the
yeah,
cognitive biases, right?
yeah, yeah. And so that's the way. Yeah, I think that's
I
the
do
issue. I
think
mean,
you're right about the cynic. Yeah. Yeah. That's like
when you feel,
people would view it
you
as too
don't have, yeah,
cynical.
you don't feel, you when you don't feel that you have a choice, that might be, by the way, super like different from reality. You probably have a choice, but in your mind you don't have the choice, right? And so you try to make it through, so your mind just creates excuses and creates explanations for why you're going to do this, that ultimately leads to that incentive.
Yeah, I sometimes bore my wife to tears with this stuff, but like I love. I mean, no, really, I love reading history books, and a lot of the history books that I read are like they're long, they're complex, but you see these incentives, and you're like, okay, cool. We made this decision at this point in time, and really the roots of it are like way back here at something that was decided 15, 20 years prior to that. But now, to use another analogy, like the chickens have finally come home to roost. And yet it's like the culmination of all of these decisions that are made. And really the incentive was, well, a lot of times it's around power, and it's around like a desire for power, right? Like, and so because a lot of the books I'm reading tend to be about like, you know, rises and falls from power. They're less about business, although it's another manifestation of power. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean uh, if you ever get curious, and you want to study something that was like on a colossal scale, is like the Vietnam War and how the U.S. got involved in Vietnam, how long the U.S. stayed in Vietnam, how much money, how many lives were lost, how it was justified. It was a 20-year war. 20 years the U.S. was involved in Vietnam. And you and I both like Southeast Asia. Hopefully, you get it. I don't know if you've been to Vietnam. If you get a chance to go, the irony of the whole story now, folks, is that Vietnam is now one of the most favored nations for the U.S. And you know why? Because Vietnam shares a border with China. So now all of a sudden, the U.S. has decided to befriend Vietnam and is selling it weapons from its military-industrial complex because it can arm the Vietnamese and be a thorn in China's side. And it's like, well, this is a country that, you know, we spent 20 years trying to stop a communist takeover on the other side of the world, and for all these different theories, domino theory, whatever. Like, anyway, so I'm off on a tangent on this one, but like my wife gets tired of listening to it because I'm like, yeah, there's like consequences of all these decisions, and they pile up and da 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 da. So
Yeah,
it
it's
is,
a ends
yeah,
up being more about the interest of the people making these decisions on Washington or where they are, right?
yeah,
Rather than a patriotic feeling, I think.
yeah,
Just like
yeah,
the interest for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and then you get into this stuff of like, okay, cool. How do you try to decentralize this, or at least limit your exposure to some of this stuff? Because deep down that this person who looks you in the face and says, "I have your best interests at heart," you're like, they don't. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I mean, I want to just basically shield myself from this sort of stuff, right? And to use
Yeah, no,
the
no,
phrase
yeah,
Taleb talks
and
about, which is to be anti-fragile, and try to make it so that when like a bone or like your immune system is that like when it's put under stress, when things go against you, that you actually come out more resilient on the other side.
yeah,
And I think you and I share an interest in that too, is because a lot of this is like how to make yourself mentally anti-fragile between the ears, let's say, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And even in that case where you said like, trust me,
I'm here for you. I'm doing this for
I'm
your
here for you.
benefit.
I'm on your side and all
Yeah.
that. Even it doesn't even have to come from a malicious
Yeah.
thing from
Yeah.
that person. It's just
Yeah.
like it's very easy for a human being to lie to himself
Yeah.
and to create a lot of excuses for doing stuff that ultimately leads to his incentives, right? Like Richard Feynman said, like the easiest person to fool is yourself, right?
Hmm.
So you have to be very careful of not fooling yourself, and you really have to like reflect and go into the root of the way you think and all that, because it's so easy to just fall for a convenient excuse to do something that ultimately benefits you personally and screws everybody else.
So part of you, when you were describing this process where you're mm, refreshing your nuggets on a quarterly basis, is that also a chance to reflect and see if you're fooling yourself in certain areas of your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, every
Sounds almost
time
like a
I
quarterly review.
yeah, I mean, you mean when I do the Nuggets database or a video?
Yeah, no, when you're
The
doing the
Nuggets
nuggets
database.
database, because you're also going back
Absolutely,
and like
yeah,
looking at stuff that you recently captured, and you think about. I mean, you read a
yeah,
good quote, and
yeah,
you go,
yeah,
"Why did this quote land with me?" Right? Like, what is it about this quote that made me? Um,
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's we can also call it my monthly review,
yeah,
my bi-monthly review of highlights,
yeah,
right? So it's great because I'm probably going to do it anyways, right? But I end up putting more content into it, and I review the content is like written perfectly, and yeah, so it works as a reflection to me of things I have
and then you get
learned,
to
and then I yeah,
yeah,
and
well,
then
sorry,
consolidate as well.
then you get but then you get to share it with the world because some of what you produce is like the art that you come out with, and some people find value in it, and you make half a penny for every person who watches one of your videos.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's
Pretty
great.
nice. Yeah.
I never expected, yeah, that both things would be aligned, but it's great. Yeah, I can explore my curiosity and at the same time that can make money.
Hmm.
That's amazing, right? Because
Amazing.
it's like this thing of that also Sam Altman talks about, that you always want to be like you want to be a compounding curve yourself, right?
Hmm.
You never want to be doing like a job that you're doing it for 2 years and the new person can learn it in 1 week, right? And he's even going to do it better because you end up, you're 50 years old and this 25-year-old comes in and he's like the same job. There's no learning curve and he's doing exactly the same but with more energy because he has the age advantage, right? So you always want to be like like a compounding curve yourself. That's what Sam Altman said in one of his blog posts. And so you always want to be like learning. You always want to be like in a learning curve, and the more you can like make that your work, that learning curve, it's that's great. And if it's like fired by your genuine curiosity, then the learning is way faster, right? Because nothing is forced upon to you, and you're always like bottom up interested in something, so that goes like way faster if you're actually interested in that thing. Like I think like also uh, Paul
Paul Graham,
Paul Graham, yeah, I forgot his surname.
Y
He said like,
Combinator,
sorry,
Y
yeah,
Combinator. Yeah.
yeah, Y Combinator. Yeah, he said like, if you have that genuine curiosity, you don't need like the discipline almost, right? Because discipline is forcing yourself to do some things that maybe you don't want to do. But if you come from a place of natural curiosity, it's just like fun, right? It's just like you want to do it. You actually genuinely want to do it.
Hmm.
So maybe there are some things that is important to force upon yourself, maybe exercise, maybe nutrition. But even then, right, you can take the whole breadth of nutrition of all the things that are healthy, and you can pick from them from there, right? What works for you? What's the most what tastes the best for you, right?
Hmm.
Because you have many like a whole like a huge breadth of vegetables, huge breadth of fruits, so you have a lot of things to pick from, right? And exercise, you can like pick, many sports or from many things. So even then, it can be a mix of a genuine willingness and maybe a little bit of discipline, at least in the realm of fitness.
Amazing. Okay, let's wrap here. If those who are curious about your curiosity want to learn more about you, what do they need to
Yeah.
do? Follow you on
Oh,
Twitter, go
not.
check
I
out
mean,
YouTube, subscribe to your
YouTube is
Substack. Where do you
better.
want me to go?
YouTube is better. Yeah.
Picking nuggets.
I mean, if you find the YouTube, you'll find everything else. If you look through the video descriptions and the bio links, it's all there. So just the YouTube channel. Yeah,
So go to YouTube and type in picking nuggets.
that's it. Yeah,
Then you'll find Julio. Thanks so much for coming on, Julio. Appreciate your time.
sure. It's a pleasure to be here, Brian. I had a great time talking with you.
Hi again, folks. If you enjoyed the show, I've got a favor to ask. Would you mind leaving a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, or whichever platform you've been listening to this podcast on? Every one of those helps. If you didn't like the show or if you've got feedback about it, let me know via the contact form on spreadgreatideas.org. I'd like to hear from you as far as what can be done to improve. So again, if you enjoyed the show, then please help out by spreading the word. And if you didn't, let me know how to improve it. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope you'll check out the next one. Thank you.